Funke's heart was full of hope as she sat in the small and cozy living room of her new home. The sound of children playing in the street outside made her happy. They gave her hope of the type of life that she had always looked forward to with her husband, Michael. Lost in the sweet memories of her marriage, she smiled and she came back to reality. Funke had always been a woman of virtue, raised in a conservative Christian family, in a quiet neighborhood of Kogi. Her parents had taught her the values of patience, hard work, and the sanctity of marriage before they died. When Michael came into her life, it looked like everything had fallen into place. He was a good man, handsome, kind, and respectful. He was also from a good home. The two had met at a family gathering, and their connection was immediate. After a short but beautiful courtship, they got married. Both of them were excited about the dream of building a happy and fruitful life together. The first 2 years of their marriage was blissful. Funke cherished the quiet moments they spent together, dreaming about children they would have, the family they would build. They enjoyed themselves, they traveled together, they had dinner dates, and they were genuinely happy. But as time passed, the absence of children started to become an obvious concern, at least to Funke. Every month, when her period starts, her hopes were dashed that her body has failed to conceive yet again, and their once happy home became a place of silent tension. It was the 3rd year of their marriage that the whispers began. Michael's mother, Mama Michael, had always been eager for grandchildren. At first, her questions about Funke's fertilities were subtle, disguised as concern. Is there any problem we should be aware of? So we can know where to direct our prayers. Oh. How are you, my dear? I hope you are eating well. I hope you people are planning to have children. But over time, our inquiries became sharper and more insensitive. Mama Michael would say during her visits. She would look at her suspiciously. Have you gone for prayers? These things don't just happen by themselves, you know. A woman must take charge of her situation. Funke would nod politely, but those words were painful. She had done everything. Prayed, fasted, visited every spiritual house recommended to her. Yet, month after month, her womb remained empty. The tension between her and Michael started to grow. He was not keen about talking anyway, not even about his feelings. But Funke could see the frustration in his eyes, the disappointment behind his silence. Making love became a chore rather than pleasure for the both of them. He would see her taking herbal concoctions and just walk past without saying anything. One evening after dinner, Funke cautiously mentioned the subject. My husband, since we have been trying for a baby for a while now, do you think we should both get checked by a doctor? Just so we are sure we are not missing anything. And there's nothing wrong with either of us. Michael's face changed instantly. He put his fork down with an audible clink and stared at her for a long moment. Me? How can you even think like that? There's nothing wrong with me, Funke. I am a man, he said. His voice was cold and very angry. You should be the one looking for solution for yourself, not me. His words felt like a painful slap. Funke had hoped he would be her partner in this journey, but instead, he had distanced himself. She sat there in silence, her heart heavy with disappointment. From that day on, Michael withdrew emotionally. He spent more time at work, often coming home late and leaving early. Their once warm and happy marriage had turned to ice, and Funke was left alone in her pain of not being able to conceive a child. Mama Michael's hostility grew with each passing month. She would drop by unannounced, look at Funke in a disapproving manner as she tidied up the house or do things around the house. "It's been 3 years, Funke, 3 years," she would say underneath her breath, but loud enough for Funke to hear. "Other women your age are giving birth to multiple children for their husbands, and here we are, still waiting for one. Okay, oh." Funke tried to ignore those comments, but they hurt every single time. The weight of cultural expectations was suffocating her. In her heart, she knew she was not the problem. She had undergone multiple tests, seen numerous doctors, and taken every concussion suggested by well-meaning relatives. The results were always the same. She was healthy. There was no medical reason why she couldn't conceive. But her husband, Michael, he refused to even consider the possibility that it might be part of the issue. "I am fine," he would say dismissively whenever she brought up the topic of seeing a doctor. "It is not my fault we do not have a child. You need to sort yourself out, woman." The emotional toll was unbearable for Funke. Every day, she woke up with a growing sense of dread, knowing that the people around her blamed her for something beyond her control. Her once confident and loving husband now barely acknowledged her presence, and Mama Michael's constant criticisms became even louder. Funke's friends, though well-meaning, they offered little comfort. They would pat her on her shoulder and say, "Stay strong, Funke. God will answer your prayers soon." But Funke had begun to lose faith in those prayers. She did not blame them, but it felt like no one understood what was going on with her. They were only able to support in the way they knew to. One morning, after another sleepless night, Funke decided to visit a well-known herbalist in a nearby town. She had heard of his herbal concoctions from women in her church, women who had sworn by his remedies. Desperation had driven her to this point. Maybe, just maybe, he would have the answer she sought, and God, who made the herbs, would use the herbs to heal her. The herbalist shop was so small, there was barely any light, and it was filled with the scent of burning herbs. The walls were lined with shelves, each one packed with bottles and jars of herbs soaked in liquids and powders. The herbalist was an elderly man. He had compassionate eyes. He listened to Funke patiently as she explained her situation. "Drink this bottle every night for 7 days before your period," he said, handing her a small bottle filled with a bitter liquid. "And come back to see me after 3 months." Funke took the concoction faithfully, hoping against hope that this time would be different. But once again, her hopes were crushed. The familiar ache of her abdomen signaled that a period had arrived once more. She broke down in tears. The disappointment was too much to bear. When she returned to the herbalist, he shook his head solemnly. "You must be patient, my daughter. Sometimes these things take time." Funke felt as if she was drowning in a sea of helplessness. The visits to prayer houses, the concussions, the endless medical tests, all of it had amounted to nothing. She was no closer to becoming a mother than she had been 3 years ago. And the weight of that failure was too much to carry. The final blow came one quiet Sunday afternoon. Funke had spent the afternoon after church preparing a meal, hoping to create a sense of normalcy in her home. Michael had been distant for months, barely speaking to her unless necessary. But Funke still held on to a ray of hope that things could change. As they sat down to eat, Mama Michael barged into the house, her face twisted with anger. "Michael," she shouted, ignoring Funke completely. "You need to take action. What is wrong with you? Can you be a man and take another wife?" This woman is a curse on your life. If you don't do something, you will never have children. And you are not getting any younger. I want to see my grandchildren before I die. Oh. Michael's face was unreadable, but he said nothing in Funke's defense. The silence that followed felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Funke turned to Michael, her eyes pleading for him to say something. Anything to show that he still cared. But all he did was push his plate away and stand up. "You need to leave, Funke," he said coldly. "This clearly isn't working anymore." Funke felt as if the ground had been ripped from under her. She stared at Michael, unable to comprehend the words that had just left his mouth. "What are you saying?" she stammered. "I am saying I want you to leave. This marriage is over." The finality in his voice shattered something deep inside her. It was as if he had discussed this with his mother and they were just acting it out. But what happened to her husband? The man that once loved her, or at least so she thought. She begged with trembling hands, but to no avail. His mother was there like the devil, to add salt to her injury. Funke had no choice but to pack a small bag of clothes and walk out of the house she had once called home. She walked through the streets in a daze, the world around her blurring as tears streamed down her face. The future she had dreamed of was gone, and in its place was an emptiness so vast that she feared it would consume her. What would she do with herself? Where will she go? Is he going to take her back? Or did he really mean their marriage was over? Trying to think, how did they not talk about having children before they got married? Or did we? Funke boarded a bus out of town that evening. Her mind was numb with grief. As the bus traveled down the road, taking her farther and farther from the life she had once known, she realized she had no idea where she was going or what would come next. All she knew was that the life she had fought so hard to build in the past few years was over, and she was now truly alone. But little did she know the journey ahead, though uncertain, held secrets she could never have imagined. The suspense of her next step lingered like a storm on the horizon, waiting to unleash itself on our fragile world. Comment continue below to find out what happens next, and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.